30F, and I, 32 male, just returned from a long weekend camping trip with two other couples, friends we've known for years. We had a great time, but something happened the morning we left that I can't shake. We were all packing up, getting ready to head back home. I was loading our car, when I looked up and saw my wife and my friend. They were at the campsite, several feet away. She was bent over to pick something up, and in that split second, I saw him reach out and squeeze her hip, sliding his hand down to her ass. My wife quickly pushed his hand away, but she didn't look upset. She was smiling at him, almost playfully. It all happened so fast, maybe a second or two, but it felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. I glanced around, but no one else seemed to have seen it. His wife was busy packing up their car, and the other couple was further away, chatting about the ride back. The drive home was quiet. My wife tried making conversation, but I couldn't focus. My mind kept replaying that scene over and over. When she asked why I was so quiet, I lied and said I was just thinking about work. The truth is, I was in shock. I didn't want to bring it up. If I mentioned it, she might tell me I was imagining things, that I was being ridiculous. The rest of the day I felt like I was just moving on autopilot. I barely slept last night and can hardly focus at work today. My mind keeps racing, questioning every detail. Aside from what I saw, the rest of the trip was great and nothing seemed out of place. A part of me is wondering if read the whole situation wrong. But, the look on her face, that smile, it was too friendly, too casual for something that crossed a line like that. I love my wife to death. We've been together since freshman year of college, and I've never had reason to doubt her. She's my best friend. But now, for the RST time, there's this knot in my gut that I can't untangle. I've never been the type to snoop. I've always trusted her completely. But right now, I'm sitting here, wondering if I should check her phone. It's password protected, so even if I wanted to, I don't know how I'd do it without her finding out. This is eating me up and I know I need to do something about it. Update 1. Found her iPad, it didn't have a password, so I got in and it is still connected to her phone. She has Telegram on it. They've been chatting on there. I am still going through the messages, but she is cheating. I am not falling apart yet, I'm trying to keep it together to make the correct next move without fucking this up. What do I do? Do I confront her when she gets home? Do I go to his house and confront him? Update 2. I didn't tell her anything. I have locked myself up in my home office under the pretense of needing to catch up on work. She is not suspicious. I kept the iPad with me, she hasn't used in so long she won't even know it's missing. I took pictures of all their messages using my phone as a safety measure as well. They have been chatting for at last 8 months as far as I can tell. Telegram is their main communication channel it seems. They've sent each other nudes, sex messages, and making plans on making their relationship official after leaving me and his wife. I can't believe she would do this to me. From the messages, I saw she had sent him a sexy suggestive photo of herself on her way to the gym earlier this evening, and when she got back home, she started kissing me, wanting sex. I declined saying I needed to get work done. I am confused right now and unable to think clearly, so I will follow the advice I am offered here. Lawyer, gather evidence. I will work on those. I also saw several comments advising me to separate my finances from hers. We co-own the apartment we live in, and have joint bank accounts. My parents died in a car crash 2 years ago and left me a large inheritance, which she knows about. She does not have access to the money in that fund. Is there anything I need to do to protect myself there if it comes to that point? We don't have kids yet. Update 3. I work from home sometimes and didn't have any meetings this morning, so I spent it researching and calling lawyers. I have 2 consultations lined up for tomorrow, but the majority couldn't book me in until next week. I will tell his wife and show her proof as soon as I settle on a lawyer and get myself covered first. Once she's been informed, I will give her time to get her affairs in order and secure a lawyer if that's what she wants to do before I decide what to do next, such as confronting my wife. I don't understand how I'm feeling. I am not angry for some reason. More numb maybe. Sick and nauseous when I think of the messages I've read, especially the sex messages. I just feel like I am just doing the things that I need to be doing right now, but it's almost like I am living somebody else's life. I don't know how long I can keep up the poker face without her noticing something is up. Update 4. Not much has happened since yesterday. Just keeping myself busy with work in the gym. The anniversary of my parents' passing is coming up in about a month and she obviously knows this, so when she asked why I seemed off, I just told her I was thinking about them. I have consultations with several lawyers lined up, most next week, a few this afternoon. Update 5. I found a hell of a lawyer who managed to draft my divorce papers within days, which were filed this morning. I am in a no-fault jurisdiction, which meant all the evidence of the infidelity which I had gathered can't be used in court. The good news is that my inheritance is safe because I didn't use the money for marital expenses. Our condo was a wedding gift, bought by both our parents, each side contributed 50% to the down payment, so one of us will have to buy the other out or we both sell it. I see the OBS on Saturday and asked to meet her for coffee. I chose that day because, ironically, her husband and my wife had gone on an overnight trip together. I found out from their messages on the iPad. The lies they were going with were, my wife was staying at her sister's for the weekend to help with the kids while her sister's husband was away on a business trip and her husband was going away for a work-related project. The truth was, my wife and my husband were taking a trip out of town together and were staying at a hotel, all paid for by the Casanova himself. I showed her their messages on the Telegram app, pictures included, all of it. She told me she noticed him feeling distant and withdrawn a few months ago. She thought it was just work stress and had no reason to suspect he was cheating. Finding out that her husband was in fact cheating, and with my wife, who is also her friend, came as a blow to her. We chatted some more and I gave her my lawyer's number as she considers her options. Sunday night, my wife returned from her sister's house. She walked through the door and greeted me with kisses, saying she missed me. After she had spent the weekend with her lover. Her ability to compartmentalize is almost diabolical. I sat her down and told her we needed to talk. I had the whole conversation recorded without her knowledge, following lawyer's advice. I live in a one-party consent state. Here's how it went. I asked her to promise to be honest with me, of course, baby, but she was nervous. Then I asked her a series of questions. Do you love me? Yes. Are you happy with me? Yes, of course, baby. Have I been a good husband to you? Do I treat you right? Yes and yes. WTH is going on? Please humor me, okay. Have I ever done anything to hurt you, whether physically or emotionally? No, of course not. WTF, okay. So, if you're happy with me, then why are you cheating on me? She stared at me in shock for a good minute and then why started denying it. This went on for a little while and then I just told her to drop the act because I found out the truth. Eventually, she broke down and admitted to kissing a guy who had been hitting on her at a bar during a night out with her girlfriend a few months ago. I don't know why, but at this point I started laughing because the whole thing was just absurd. She not only cheated on me, she had taken every opportunity she could find to cheat on me. I asked her if that was the only time she cheated. She swore up and down that it was the only time and that it was a moment of weakness, that she was drunk, and it had meant nothing. I said nothing. I gave her my lawyer's business card and said I filed for divorce. I hadn't yet. I wanted to talk to her just once first to see if there was anything left of our marriage to salvage, and that if she wanted to reach me she should call my lawyer. She cried, begged, apologized, and then when I started packing a suitcase, she shifted to gaslighting me, saying I was throwing away everything we had over a mistake. And the worst part of what she said was I had no one else in the world. Why would I leave the only family I had left? This stung because I told her she was my only remaining family after my parents died and there was no one else I could depend on. Only for her to throw those very words back in my face. I left that night to a hotel where I am staying until I find a new apartment. Yesterday, I officially filed for divorce. Edit. My responses to some of the comments. I didn't tell her that I knew about the affair after she said she kissed some random guy at the bar. She ended up finding out from her. The OBS confronted him and called her up as well and gave her shit. The OBS was really upset when I told her and couldn't keep it in. I don't blame her. He really did her dirty. Her mom is sick and she has been going out of town a lot to be with her, and instead of supporting her, he had been using that time to get with my wife. I didn't because I was blindsided by her telling me she kissed a random guy at a bar. It may sound insignificant compared to the double life she has been leading with my friend, but in that moment I think I started realizing how badly she wanted to cheat on me and it came as a shock. I was too angry to say anything to her without blowing up in her face. So, I just left. It's hard to explain why. It just made more sense to leave than to try and find out why she'd been sleeping with my friend after I heard that from her. When I left the house she kept calling me that night and leaving me messages. When the OBS called her the next day and also confronted her husband, she stopped trying to reach me. It's been crickets from her since. And him too. I put 2 and 2 together because around the time OBS messaged to tell me she confronted him and called her, I stopped getting calls from my wife. Update 6. My wife was served the divorce papers last week. I am still at the hotel and close to finding a new apartment. Last week when I left I forgot to take iPad with me. I picked it up when I went back a couple days later to grab clothes and other stuff. Apparently, my wife had a fallout with her friend who was with her at the bar, accusing her of being the one who told me about her kiss that hot guy. Her friend is no longer speaking with her, it seems. After everything went down, his wife threw him out, and he's been staying at his sister's place. She and I have been talking. She found a lawyer and is filing for divorce. She has informed our few common friends about what's been going on and they've all cut off contact with them. Also, the asshole came by my place and spent the night with my wife twice last week. She has also been messaging her sister, who, it turns out, knew about the affair. My wife found a lawyer apparently and was complaining to her sister that her lawyer explained the asset division and confirmed she has no claim on my inheritance and that she thought that was unfair. Now, here's the gut punch. All those conversations about finding an apartment together and becoming official have significantly cooled since my wife's visit to her lawyer, which I found odd. A few days ago I got a message from her asking if we could put a pause on the divorce proceedings. She said she loves me, Thinks we're being crazy about this, and that everyone deserves a second chance. She even hit me with "I can't live without you" BS. If I didn't have the iPad, I might have thought she was genuinely remorseful. But knowing what she's been up to all week, I knew this only came after she realized she won't be entitled to a cent of my inheritance. Honestly, that fucking hurt. I am following my lawyer's advice, who told me not to respond. The more I think about it, the more disgusted I am by her, my friend and her sister. The fact that her change of heart seems to stem entirely from her discovery that she won't touch my inheritance is beyond disturbing. I always intended to use that money for a trust fund if we had kids, something I told her countless times. I didn't touch it because it reminded me of the trauma of losing my parents. The level of disrespect she has shown not only me, but also now my parents, who loved her and treated her like a daughter. I'm just glad they're not here to see this. I met up with his wife over the weekend. She's my friend too, and she's been going through a rough time, especially with her mom's health issues on top of this whole mess. I told her about the messages. Long story short, she had been reconsidering the divorce after her husband tried to reconcile with her. But once I showed her the messages about my inheritance and pointed out how their messages have cooled, she saw things differently. She also shared something that struck me. Apparently, a few months after my parents passed, her husband had made a comment about how I was a lucky son of a bitch for inheriting their money. She confronted him then, shocked he would call me lucky after losing them, and he backtracked, claiming he didn't mean it that way. At the time, she brushed it off, but now she is second-guessing his motives. It seems far-fetched, but it's starting to sound like she thought she would get her some after divorcing me and start a new life with him. Either way, their behavior is despicable. I have been trying to look after myself. I started therapy, I've been going to the gym almost obsessively, and trying to stay away from alcohol. I am trying so hard to put on a strong exterior. Some of my friends have said it's a little scary how cold I've been, but it's the only way I can go about my day-to-day without losing my mind. The nights are very rough, I struggle with sleep, I sometimes drink to help me through it, I'm not proud, and sometimes, I cry myself to sleep. Now on to second story. Recorded my ex-girlfriend's request to open our relationship and shared it with her parents after they criticized our breakup. I, 26 male, broke up with my girlfriend of 4 years Mary, F 27, about a month ago, because she asked me to open our relationship. It is / and always will be a major line in the sand for me, something that I have opened up to her about in the past. We've had a great relationship and the only thing that stands out, and the only reason it stands out now is because of this situation, is she progressively started making a lot more sexual jokes about some of our shared friends over the last few months. Some involved her being with them and others were three-way jokes etc. I won't lie, I played along a little but I consistently made some joking response along the lines of "you're more than enough for me" and or "I don't like sharing." Never took any of it seriously, because, why would I? Until she asked and I found out / realized that she was probably trying to gauge my response and see how open I was. Mary asked when we were getting ready for bed about a month ago kinda bluntly. I was scrolling on my phone and she was getting changed and goes, "If I asked you to open the relationship, would you?" This might sound super corny, but it was like I had an out-of-body experience and all of the above hit me at once. All the jokes and comments so far made sense in a she's trying to butter me up to the idea kind of way and went really numb for a second. To her credit, she must have seen how freaked out I was and asked if I was okay. I pretended I didn't hear her and asked her to repeat herself and she was really hesitant too, kept saying she didn't say anything, and only repeated it when I insisted. Then, I went to voice notes, set it to record and put my phone down to talk to her. I don't remember much of it, just that I tried to stay calm and keep her talking, but the note is just over an hour and a half long and it feels like I'm listening into a conversation that happened between two strangers. She trickled truth all the way through it and ultimately stuck to the idea that she hadn't been cheating. She didn't have any one person in mind but had been fantasizing about mutual friends and people at work and seemed to get the idea that they'd be open to something if she asked. A lot of it is her being defensive and me trying to needle information out of her without it escalating into an argument. A lot of me placating her and trying to make her feel comfortable enough to keep talking. The apartment is mine and I suggested we take a break a few nights later, so she went to stay with a friend for the weekend. By the next Monday I'd spoken to some of my friends and my sisters, secretly, and come to the conclusion that we were done and suggested she started looking for somewhere else to stay. She was upset but didn't really argue and had the vast majority of her stuff out, and at her parents' house, by the end of the week. So, coming to 2 days ago, her mom reached out over WhatsApp to say she was disappointed in how I'd handled everything. Gee, the message wasn't really framed in a way that she was reprimanding me, more that she wished we could have worked it out. She then added me to a group chat with her husband, ex's stepdad, and they both kinda tag-teamed me saying that we could work it out, I was making a mistake and that I shouldn't overthink things. I eventually got it out of them that my ex had fed them a very vague story that we had broken up because she'd wanted to take the next step in our relationship and that I'd freaked out, we'd argued and she'd been effectively kicked out. Her stepdad was leaning on the fact that he thought I was more mature than this, and her mom just kept repeating how disappointing this whole situation was. So, I was pissed. In the heat of the moment, I told them I had the recording of our conversation that I could send that would explain what she actually meant about taking the next step. I initially tried to email it to them, but it was being a ball ache, so I eventually shared it via Drive. In the meantime, I took a few screenshots of my ex and I's messages, ones where she had made jokes and comments about sex with our friends and a lady from her office, and sent them along to that shared chat group. I haven't heard back since. Again, it's been 2 days, and I don't feel as vindicated anymore. A good few of my ex's comments were about other women, and I'm freaking out because I don't know how, if at all, open she's been about her sexuality with them. I also think I shouldn't have engaged at all, and I shouldn't have felt the need to prove my innocence to either of them. Ida? I've checked in with friends, and over social media, and it doesn't look like there has been any fallout. Also, my ex blocked me a week ago, before I spoke to her parents, so I can't really contact her without going in person. And, at this point, is it too late to even give her a heads up or check in? To address a few points I have seen in multiple comment. We don't live in the US and we have no laws on recording private conversations on the books. I am not proud of doing it, but it wasn't illegal. Mary and I had several mature, calm conversations about what we both wanted out of this relationship. Mary wasn't sure if she wanted to stay and kind of admitted to self-sabotaging by asking about opening the relationship. Mary and I have been friends since we were 11. Her mom was my coach when I swam competitively, and our friend group and families are very close and intermingled, so she was wary about what would happen if we went on a break or fully broke up. I was not trying to punish her for being open to polyamory. Mary and I are both bi, and when I was in my last year of high school I was involved in an inappropriate relationship with a teaching assistant. He was arrested and registered as a sex offender, but during the time we were involved, he convinced me to be with other people as well. He effectively pimped me out for a year and physically assaulted me when I eventually said no and tried to cut him off. Mary knew all of the above, as she helped me through it at the time, and I was very clear that I can't do something like that again. I know that what I went through wasn't an actual open relationship, but it was very much framed as one, and that has stuck with me. I would never put down other people for doing it, but I made this all very clear to Mary and the other serious relationship I was in before her. I've carried a lot of issues from then into future relationships, and I am in therapy and have worked with Mary to not punish her for what other people have done to me, but for as great and supportive Mary was, she did have an issue with trying to gaslight me. She would say one thing and then, typically during an argument, would vehemently argue otherwise and genuinely make me question myself. It took her coming to therapy with me, and me sometimes showing her texts, for her to realize this was a problem, and we had been working on it, together. Me recording her was still not right, but it wasn't an attempt to gather something incriminating, it was just a response. It was a poor response that I shouldn't have done, but it wasn't malicious, nor did I intend to send it to anyone at the time. Also, since making this post and reading your replies, I've gone back to her parents to apologize. I did initially try and tell them that she wasn't being honest and that I wanted to keep things private, but they kept going on about me being immature and that this was disappointing. I'll be honest, I got a bit angry again rereading some of their messages, but it really didn't warrant me outing Mary the way I did. Update 1. I'm not sorry for recording her. I understand that people don't like the idea of being recorded by an intimate partner, especially when having an intimate conversation, and you, naturally, support Mary on that front out of solidarity, but all I can say is, you do not know what Mary is like or what our relationship was like either. A little before she came to therapy with me, and the incident that pushed me to try and get her to come with me, Mary texted me to pick her up a Smarties McFlurry on the way home from work. When I brought it home and gave it to her, she told me she asked for a Dairy Milk one they don't even do here anymore, and rolled her eyes at me not listening to her again. Trying to show her what she had sent led to a 15-minute shouting match which resulted in her throwing her ice cream at the wall and shattering my phone screen. That's one incident of many. She once told me I was flirting for holding the door open for a group because there were girls you were clearly trying to impress with them, and went on such a long tirade about my male chivalry was just a selfish way to gain attention from women beyond her. I am not apologizing anymore for recording her. I wouldn't have had such a visceral need to defend myself if I wasn't with someone who kept hurting me. I made that recording because I knew she would lie, and she did. But I thought she would lie to me, not to other people, and I wanted it strictly so I had her words, they're on my phone, should she start claiming she said anything else. At the end of the day though, we didn't end up having any of that, and we parted maturely. I understand that a lot of you won't believe that was my intention, and I'll just have to live with that. Beyond all that, I am still sorry for sending it to her parents as a way to get back at her. Her parents have always been very pro-LGBTQ+, so although it wasn't right to out her, I was massively overthinking them harming her or kicking her out. At most, exposing her interest in polyamory would have embarrassed her, but nothing I shared would have put her in any danger. That being said, I saw red during that exchange and saw this as a way to finally show people I wasn't misremembering things. It was spiteful and vindictive, and I can see so many different ways I could have dealt with the situation more calmly, but I was angry and I didn't do any of them. And for that I am still sorry. Like I said in the edit to my previous post, I apologize to her parents. I apologize for getting angry, cussing them out, and for sharing private information about their daughter to them. I fully acknowledge that I was being spiteful and that it was a harsh escalation of a response. Anne and Paul, What I'll call them for this post, accepted it at face value, but asked if I could come over for lunch this afternoon so we could have an actual conversation. It was nice, but really awkward too. Mary wasn't there. I apologized again and Paul and Ann said they were sorry for interfering and not giving me a chance to tell my side. We both agreed we'd acted inappropriately and that, going forward, we wouldn't involve ourselves in this topic. Left things on relatively better terms, but I'm not going to talk to them for a while. Above everything, they are Mary's parents, and they will always be in her corner, as parents should be, so keeping my distance is in everyone's best interests. As for Mary, she unblocked me late last night and let loose a tirade of angry messages. They mostly, of course, consisted of how creepy and disgusting I was for recording her. Again, I recorded her because I knew she'd lie and all she did was prove my point, to which, despite still cussing me out, she had no real response for. I got from her, Ann and Paul, that things are understandably awkward, after what I'd shared, but she's still staying with them, for the time being. They've not discussed it with her, beyond letting her know they'd heard the recording and now knew she'd lied, but there's been no indication of negative consequences. And that's it. I'm reeling from 4 years of a relationship being over, of my girlfriend and best friend using my own trauma as a way to make me break up with her and then pretending everything was okay just to lie about me behind my back. But what is hurting me more is how I only now understand, from reading replies to my post and talking to my friends, that I was with yet another abuser and I am nowhere near as strong, or as over what happened to me, as I thought.